Good evening and welcome to the September 2nd City Council meeting. If you've joined me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Michelle Volk.
Here.
Luke Hellier.
Here.
John Bermel. Dan Wolter.
Here.
Joshua Lee.
Here. Okay, moving on to item number 3, citizens' comments. There's an opportunity for residents or business leaders to address the council for up to 3 minutes for an issue that's already not on the agenda. Okay, very good. Moving on to item number 4, additional agenda information, Mr. Miller.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay, and then we will get on to our introduction of our new police officers and turn over to our police chief, Brad Paulson. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As our officers begin to make their way on up here to my right with their designated badge pinners, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to get our newer hires in front of the council. They're going to get a badge pinned on them tonight by a family member or a close person in their lives. That badge holds some significance, and we feel like a public pinning of that shows the honor that goes with that, but also the responsibility. And they'll also be administered an oath of office tonight, and we feel that's important as well in front of our community. Policing a community does not happen without a partnership, and I think a piece of that partnership is the transparency and showing our community who these officers are. So all 6 of these folks are somewhere in their journey between finishing field training, some just a few days ago, up into their first year of employment. So I'm just going to call them up one by one, read a short bio so you get a little introduction of them, and have their family member or friend pin a badge on while I do that. So we'll start with Officer Adam Peterson, badge 48133. Adam started with us back in October of last year. Adam grew up in a rural farming community south of Mankato and attended Lake Crystal Welcome Memorial High School. He went on to St. Mary's University in Winona, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in police science. Before coming to Lakeville, Officer Peterson worked as a deputy with the Carver County Sheriff's Office for 10 years. There, he was a field training officer, a crime scene unit member, peer support team member, and participated in several other supplemental programs. Officer Peterson, his wife, and 2 boys live locally in Dakota County, and he stays busy with his 2 boys playing hockey and baseball. And in their free time, Officer Peterson and his family enjoy the outdoors, sports, and lake life up north. Congratulations to Officer Adam Peterson. Next up is Officer Brandon McCarthy, badge 48134, who started with us last November. Officer McCarthy grew up in Savage and attended Burnsville High School. He went on to Inver Hills Community College and completed his law enforcement skills training at Hennepin County Technical College. Before coming to Lakeville PD, Officer McCarthy worked for 7 years in security at the Mall of America and 3 years as a police officer with the Faribault Police Department, where he was a field training officer and a bike patrol officer. Outside of work, Officer McCarthy enjoys spending time with his wife and 10-year-old daughter, fishing, and traveling. He also wanted to be sure to mention Hooper and Izzy, their 1- and 3-year-old boxers. Congrats to Officer Brandon McCarthy. Next up is Officer Josh Wickner, badge 48135. Josh also started with us back in November of last year. Officer Wickner grew up in South Minneapolis and graduated from Minneapolis South High School. From there, he attended Normandale Community College and then Metropolitan State University, earning his bachelor's degree in law enforcement. Prior to coming to Lakeville PD, Officer Wickner spent time as a security training supervisor with the Mall of America, as well as nearly 12 years at Mystic Lake Casino, where he hired and trained security and surveillance personnel. He has also been a firefighter and currently is firefighter EMT with the city of Elko, Newmarket. He's done that for over 11 years and currently serves as a training lieutenant there. Outside of work, when he finds time, Officer Wickner enjoys spending time with friends and family, camping, and exploring our nation's national parks. Congratulations to Officer Wickner. Next up is Officer Melissa Rupert, badge 48136. Melissa started with Lakeville PD in January of this year. She grew up in Iowa and graduated from Emmetsburg High School. From there, she moved down to the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, where she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, with an emphasis in forensics and a minor in psychology. Before joining Lakeville PD, Officer Rupert spent 3 years as a correctional officer for the Washington County Sheriff's Office. She's also a member of the U.S. Air Force Reserve, and in her free time, Officer Rupert enjoys spending time outdoors gardening, going on hikes and walks with her dog, and working on house projects. Congratulations to Officer Rupert. Officer Justin Engel, badge 48138, began with us back in April of this year. He's our Lakeville connection tonight, grew up in Lakeville and graduated from the Lakeville High School right before it split into North and South. He went on to receive his bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Metropolitan State University. Prior to coming on board as a police officer here, Officer Engel spent about 2.5 years as a community service officer with Lakeville PD, and for the past 10 years was a security officer and security supervisor at Mystic Lake Casino. When he's not working, Officer Engel enjoys fishing, shooting sports, and spending time with his friends and family. Congratulations to Officer Justin Engel. And finally, Officer Alexander Conkle, badge 48139. He also started with us back in April. Officer Conkle grew up in St. Paul and attended Como Park Senior High School. He went on to Minnesota State Mankato, where he earned his bachelor's degree in law enforcement. Before joining Lakeville PD earlier this year, Officer Conkle spent about 4 years working in security at Mystic Lake Casino. You've probably noticed a trend here by now. Outside of his time spent at work, Officer Conkle enjoys hiking, playing all sorts of games, including card, board, and video games, and spending time with friends and family. Congratulations and welcome to Officer Alexander Conkle. And now as the mayor makes his way down to read your oath, I'll just have you all, the officers, step forward and face the crowd. Get your oath administered.
Fantastic. You want to raise your right hand? I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Minnesota, and faithfully discharge the duties of police officer for the city of Lakeville in the county of Dakota and state of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Is it okay to say something? Yeah. So as you're getting seated, just a couple comments quick. First off, Chief, I have an image of you hanging out at Mystic Lake Casino with a trench coat on, going, "Psst, come here, come here." No, in all seriousness, congratulations, all of you. You've worked very hard to get to this point right now, and you're going to continue to work hard for a community that needs you and supports you. I was really impressed with all of your backgrounds, just listening to the experience and the heart that you have for the security of our community and the safety of our community. And the profession that you're in attracts the best. And I believe Lakeville attracts the best of the best. And I think we heard that tonight. So congratulations, you're embarking on just a wonderful career that will be very challenging and very rewarding. Welcome to Lakeville.
I just wanted to add that, the group that you're joining, as I'm looking around the room here, it's something special. I never thought I would get to know officers as well as I know these folks in the room here, and I just really look forward to getting to know you as well, because this is a dedicated crew. I trust them with my life, and I know this community really appreciates the work that they're doing and what you will be doing as part of this department. So thank you in advance. Your service is greatly appreciated.
Great. I think my colleagues said it very well. We'll take a brief pause, so if your families don't want to stay for the rest of the council meeting, you're welcome to exit and do photos and everything out in the lobby. So thank you all for being here. And thank you to the families for all the support you have given your officers and will over the next several years. So thank you. All right, we'll move on and give our Parks and Rec director a little bit extra time to walk up today for our Parks and Rec quarterly report. Good evening, Mr. Macy Archin.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am here to give our quarterly report for June and August. We'll be starting, as we typically do, with administration, covering some of the tasks that we've been taking care of through the office. Starting out with some of the initiatives that we were working on, and we'll be starting by talking a little bit about the Grand Prairie Park construction project. So August 12th, we were able to open the pickleball courts at Grand Prairie Park. We've actually been able to get the lighting working on those. It's been a busy facility for us already at that end of the park. Recently, we've gotten close to completing the rest of the landscaping and seating on the site. We anticipate that'll be done here either later this week or beginning of next. The athletic decks are now starting to grow in. You're starting to actually see turf coming in at the facility. The fields, the trails, and the parking lot lights are all scheduled here to be working by mid-September. And the next big accomplishment is really going to be the opening of the field support building, which is the set of restrooms close to the pickleball courts. So we're going to be excited when that part of the park is open. East Community Park, which is the last project we've got on the park bond referendum, which is scheduled to be constructed in 2026, is moving along. That has moved through a community survey. We received over 200 responses for that. The final design that has been landed on is called Heritage Landing, and that concept is still being worked on and developed. It'll actually be coming to a work session here in the future. But some of those concepts that are included in that design build off of the history of the park itself. So working off of kind of farm-themed play ideas, nature play, four-season restrooms, which is tied to the project that we're doing with Dakota County and the North Creek Greenway. We're looking at some community gardens, kayak launch, but really working on the connection between the original part of the park and the new part of the park to make it feel like one cohesive facility. But we're excited to bring that to you in the master plan here in the future. The Lake Marion Greenway construction project, or planning for that construction project, is also moving along. That is a 2026 project. We are continuing to work on the development of the plans for that park. We will be holding another or the second open house here later this fall. And phase one of that project, which again will be constructed here in 2026, is going to be running from downtown Lakeville into Ritter Farm Park. When that project is complete, it will connect Savage, Farmington, Murphy-Hannerhan, ultimately looking at over a 20-mile trail segment. Spyglass Park, which is the neighborhood park that we are building this year, that's phase two. That is also moving along in construction. Currently, the bocce ball courts are taking shape. We will be adding a pre-K playground element There's a multi-purpose athletic deck that'll be going in at that park. That's been graded and will be seated here in the next few weeks. And then that park will also include a half-court basketball court with pickleball striping. That park should be complete here later this fall. And the park system master plan is moving along. That is a year-long planning process for us. Recently, we've completed the identification for our project management team, which includes representatives from Parks and Recreation, Planning, planning, I said planning, and then also the Parks, Rec, and Natural Resource Committee will have representatives on that as well. This fall, we'll be moving into a community-wide survey, and that'll be the kickoff to that project. And park maintenance has been quite busy here this summer as some of their seasonal duties are identified. We talk about those annually, but those include playground inspections, mowing operations, and field preparation, fertilization, herbicide treatments, and sanitation, also quite a bit more. That all, along with our regular full-time staff, is made possible by our seasonal staff. And this year we wanted to make sure to give them some additional recognition. They worked so hard for us over the summer. Many of them have already left now for school, but it's an important part to be able to make us be able to do what we are. The Kenwood disc golf course improvements were completed earlier this summer. That was in preparation for the National Disc Golf Tournament. And staff completed a variety of improvements with the Kenwood Disc Golf Course that included new signage, new tee pads, and then course mowing and grooming as well. We've talked recently about the new leash law here in Lakeville. Parks maintenance staff was able to implement some of those improvements in the system. So switching over 4 of our hockey rinks, which have turf, to off-leash dog areas, as well as 2 designated areas within parks. We're already seeing that people are starting to utilize those, and some of those improvements include dog waste bags, new trash receptacles, and signage. Special events have also been busy this summer. We've got those annual events that really take a toll on our parks maintenance staff, but obviously preparations for the 4th of July, the Panaprog events, including beer brats and bingo, the Panaprog race, the pop fishing tournament, and of course, Taste of Lakeville as well. And recreation has been busy this summer as well. Enrollment for our summer youth sports has really done well, sitting at over 1,500 total enrollees. Some of those camps with the highest participants include basketball and t-ball. It includes golf, soccer, tennis, but we're really happy with how those programs ran this year. We've talked in the past about the expansion of our environmental programs over at Ritter Farm Park in the Edmaco Environmental Learning Center. Over the past 3 months, we've had over 200 enrollments for those programs. Some of the most popular ones continue to be Eco-ELSA, the Minnesota Wildlife, and then the Raptors presentation. And for summer adult leagues, those are also doing well. Pickleball tends to obviously take the lead on that. So 245 teams that participated this year. Sand volleyball, 44 teams, and then the golf clinic, 19 participants. And this year we did do some additional and some new educational programs. Some of these are in conjunction with ISD 194. That includes the drone race and rocket launch challenge. Camp Kermit is one of our historic programs that did quite well. And then solar car and robotic machines, that's new, but was again in conjunction with the school district. And for Panaprog, Recreation also held some very popular events, including the pickleball tournament with 86 teams, the pop run with 463 runners, and then the youth fishing contest with 32. And for upcoming events, there's obviously quite a few here as we go into fall. As a reminder, this year we combined our summer and our fall brochure. So those programs are all available and are available for viewing on our website as well. This weekend, though, is the Whodunit hike. The tour of Lakeville is coming up September 20th. And then winter spring online registrations kick off for us here on October 9th. And moving on to the Art Center. So by the numbers, the Art Center was quite busy over the last 3 months. We saw a 23, almost 24% increase in their revenue, 11% increase in their participation. 80% of their classes, those would be more adult classes, were filled to capacity, and our art camps, which are designed more for youth, 92% capacity. One of those that I'm going to call out is the weekly pottery camps. Out of 200 available spots, we filled 199 of those. So that's, again, one of those programs going into next year. We'll have to look at ways that we can accommodate more participants. For performing arts, some notable programs. The first one that I'm going to call out was Calendar Girls. That's done by our Lakeville Expressions Community Theater, set an all-time sales record for their summer show. The other 4 programs were all done with storybooks, so those are some of our youth theater camps, but did quite well as well. And for Panaprog, also quite busy. Picnic and Puppets, 137 participants. The art sale, they had over $7,000 in sales. That was up by about 35% over last year. And Live at the Lake series, we wrapped that up last week. It went incredibly fast, but that was 14 dates. Several of those were canceled this year due to weather. But this year we hosted over 8,000 estimated concert goers. And for upcoming events, most notably, I've got to share, Lakeville Art Festival is coming up September 20th and 21st. Make sure to check that out. That's one of the marquee events for the Art Center. Otherwise, kicking off the Performing Arts Series is the Lake Wobegon Brass Band, October 3rd. A Hunting Shack Christmas, which is also by Expressions. That's coming up here in November. And Mini Nutcracker, that is one of the productions we've done for years and has a history of selling out very quickly. And on to the Heritage Center. Heritage Center, and we've talked about this in the past as well, the strategic plan that we did with Recreation and Heritage Center. Recently, the Heritage Center completed a series of facility tours. So over a 2-day period, 5 staff and 2 senior member representatives visited 6 facilities, looking at things like membership fees, number of members, hours of operation, how their fitness center operates, newsletter frequency, those types of things. Looking at things that work well for other facilities, looking at things that we may want to shift or adjust, but I think overall it was a very successful process for us. And as far as visits go, here in from June to August, we had over 2,000 unique visitors per month at the Heritage Center. Some of the popular programs continue to be the card and board games, bingo, the book club, crafts, and obviously fitness center use. And for the summer groups, this year, numbers, again, were phenomenal. Biking club, 74 participants, golf, 113, fitness, over 100, pickleball, again, 237, and then men's golf, 80. So some great numbers here for the Heritage Center. And they also do a series of special events over the summer and trips. In June, their luncheon had 43 participants, spring tea, almost 80, pizza in the park, which was at the John Hennon Pavilion, that was at 80. And then they, on their 2 trips, those are done jointly with other facilities as well. So we have limited spots on those, but include the Wind Farm Turbines and Llamas, as well as Disney's Beauty and the Beast downtown. And for upcoming events, they've got the watercolor workshop coming up, Lakeville Luncheon October 14th, and then the fall migration tour on November 10th. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Council, questions, comments? Incredible. Yeah, great numbers. Did we see an increase, or was it kind of flat with rentals at Antlers on the buildings?
Increase. I don't actually have the final numbers on the increase. Shelter rentals were up, and rentals on John Hennon Pavilion were up. We'll have the percentage here, I would assume, by the next quarterly report. Keep in mind, this summer was it's only been open 2 years. This summer we shifted to doing 2 reservations per day for the pavilion. Last year we only allowed 1. So.
Can you remind us how the concession stand at Antlers works for the rest of this season? How long they may be open for?
Yep, so now that we've gone past Labor Day, their hours do shift, so they're not open every day at this point in the season. So they're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we've gone back into the school season, and they're open through September 15th.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 6, the consent agenda. These are typically more routine items for the council. Just council, anything you wanted to, sorry, Mr. Miller, anything you want to highlight?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 items tonight. 6J is a resolution accepting donations to the Parks and Recreation Department, which Mr. Masiacci just spoke about. In total, we're accepting $18,000 in either cash donations or in-kind donations, and we're thankful for all of those. And then item 6K is an ordinance amendment to Title 7, Chapter 8 of our city code, and this is relating to the operations of electric-assisted bicycles or e-bikes on trails and sidewalks and paved pathways within the city. This is something that the council discussed at a recent work session, and this ordinance reflects that discussion.
Okay, very good. Council, anything you'd like to pull for further discussion? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Bermel,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye. Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier.
Aye. Okay, very good. Okay. We'll now move on to item 7A, approval of preliminary 2026 property tax levy and budget. And we'll turn it over to Finance Director Ms. Stahl for a presentation. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. First off, I want to thank you and the members of the staff for all their hard work. The budget process starts in May, roughly, and goes all the way up through the fall and into the winter even. Tonight's action, we are asking for the approval of a levy of $52.3 million, and the tax base growth for the city is absorbing most of the levy increase. So the impact to the median value home, which now is $468,000 home in Lakeville, is roughly $81 a year increase. This slightly different number than what you saw at the work session last week. The market value exclusion calculation changes that happened last year needed to be factored in again, and so just a slight change from what you saw last week at the work session. We've approved 3 new positions with the budget, and there's a lot of information in your packet that we've gone over last week at the work session, so I won't touch on everything with that. But just letting you know, tonight's action will drive the information that is in the Truth in Taxation property tax valuations that go out in November from the county. And then what will happen is we will have the Truth in Taxation meeting on December 1st at 6 p.m. That's where we get public input, and council will adopt the final levy. We can reduce the levy from what is adopted tonight, but we cannot increase it, or it can be kept the same. So with that, I'll leave for any questions that council had with what was in the packet.
Council, any questions or comments? Councilmember Lee?
I don't have any additional questions, but I did want to highlight the what I believe is significant prudence with this budget. There were several other positions I think that staff we're hoping to receive this year, but I think we've come to a good compromise here with the positions that you're requesting. So gratitude to all the departments that worked on this budget and brought it to a number that I think 7% is much lower than last year's levy, and I think we do need that relief there. We continue to be the lowest tax city among our Dakota County peers, and Dakota has historically been the lowest tax county in the state. So I think we're in a very positive position. So just wanted to highlight some of those points and give my thanks to you and the staff for this year's proposal.
Very good. Any other comments? I'd have to agree. I mean, I think as we talked about in the work session, I feel good about where we're coming in, and I think with sharper pencils, we might be able to see some more savings by the end of the year when we get into budgeting. But with that, I will take a motion to approve the resolution. Councilmember Bermel.
I move to approve the resolution establishing the preliminary 2026 property tax levy and preliminary 2026 budget, and setting the budget public hearing to be held on Monday, December 1st, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m. in the council chambers.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier,
Aye.
Bermel.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you for all the work from your team, Ms. Stahl, and all the department heads for putting together that budget. Moving on to item 7B, excuse me, a public hearing, ordinance annexing land owned by Compass Rail Lakeville LLC and the Metropolitan Airports Commission located in Eureka Township. And I don't believe somebody from Compass Rail, or Ms. Goodroad, are you going to present, or?
Dan.
Okay, good. We do have somebody from Compass. Good evening. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Yes, I'm Dan Schmidt-Dill, Vice President of Compass Rail, and I'm here to request the council, the mayor, and staff consider annexation of our property that's highlighted in the package on Highview Avenue. The purpose of the annexation will be to develop a rail car storage facility in conjunction with PG Progressive Railroad and the city of Lakeville.
Very good. It's a long time coming.
Yeah, thank you. Want me to stay up there?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Compass Rail LLC and the Metropolitan Airports Commission have requested or submitted a petition requesting annexation. The total annexation area is just 33.31 acres. It's at the very, so it touches our southern boundary. It's the area highlighted in red, and it's immediately west of Highview Avenue and west of kind of where the airport is. So if you can visualize that area. We asked the MAC to be included in this. We initiated that so that the city would be squared off, because Compass Rail is taking that southern kind of triangle that touches the city, and so we just wanted to have an even square, and so the MAC was fine with that. The Compass Rail facility will develop the Compass part of the property will develop into a rail storage yard, while the MAC property will remain undeveloped. There will be no changes to that property. Again, Minnesota statutes gives the city, or property owners, the opportunity to petition the city as long as it's 120 acres or less, and that it's contiguous to the city. Again, this is a first step. We'll have to follow this up with land use and a rezoning for the property, and then they'll go through the different approvals for the development of that rail car storage yard. And this does require a public hearing.
Okay. Very good. So this is a public hearing. I will now order the public hearing open. If there's anybody that had a comment about this annexation. Yes. If you'd come up and state your name and your address. Yep.
My name is Linda Ripley, and I live in Eureka Township on 235th Street and Dodd. And my question is, are there parameters in place? Maybe it's too early, because I know they had to get this all okayed first. Are there parameters in place for lighting in regards to the light filtering effect? You know how the businesses on County Road 70 with FedEx and Schneiderman's, and they all have the lights that are aimed down purposefully so it didn't affect.
Right. Well, if you have any other questions, and then I'll have our staff answer the question for you.
That's what I. That's
just the one question? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Goodroad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, all lighting in the city for any commercial or industrial property does have to be downcast style. So as we work on the development proposal, that is part of our ordinance and something that will be required on this site.
Okay. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Roll call, please.
Bermel,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier.
Aye. Okay. With that, any further discussion on this request from council? If not, I will take a motion to approve the request.
I'll make
make a motion to adopt an ordinance annexing the Compass Rail Lakeville LLC and MAC property located in Section 5 of Eureka Township pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 414.033, Subdivision 2, Section 3.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Very good. What I'll just say, and this has been a project of figuring out what to do with the rail cars on County Road 50 for a very, very long time. And thanks to, the work from our state legislators to secure state funding and from our member of Congress to help with some engineering funding and the partnership with Progressive and the city and Compass, we're in like the next little baby step to make this all happen. So thank you for your partnership from Compass and look forward to working together on this. And with that, roll call, please.
Walter.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Volk.
Aye.
Hellier.
Aye.
Bermel.
Aye.
Okay, very good. That feels good. That's a one going back to mayors before me that we've been working on that. So, moving on to item C, Tradition Development Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Map Amendments. I don't know if Mr. Stutz is kicking off. Okay. Yep. Welcome.
Mayor, member of the council, I'm Todd Stutz. I'm with Tradition Development Corp. I'm also here this evening with me is Jake Annebeck. I'm president of Tradition Development Corp, as well as Patrick Rossi, project manager with Tradition Development Corp. We're handing out a package of information, a PowerPoint that we shared with the Planning and Zoning Commission back on August 7th. We were very grateful for their support of our applications at that time, and we'd like to review that with you this evening. I think most of you are familiar with Tradition Development Corp. Two notable developments I'd like to mention this evening would be Spirit of Brandon Farms in Lakeville and Hunters Brook in the city of Victoria. Spirit of Brandon Farms in Lakeville specifically is a development that's very similar in terms of size. The property that we're looking at this evening that's part of the overall development is 390 acres. Spirit of Brandon Farms is actually 512 acres. The density at Spirit of Brandon Farms is roughly 1,400 housing units. What we're discussing this evening is roughly 1,200 housing units. That's sort of a maximum that would be developed on the property. One of the things that's unique about Spirit of Brandon Farms, and you guys obviously are very familiar with it, is that staff, the council, and the planning commission at that time, back in 2005, put a lot of time and effort in developing a unique set of development standards and architectural guidelines, which were implemented over the last 20 years in that development. I think you can see the results of that and the fact that it's unique and it's a special place. It was considered to be the top development for a number of years in the Twin Cities, and we think that it's also still representative of being one of the best examples of a traditional neighborhood within the Twin Cities. One of the other features, obviously, that's unique is that it has a significant neighborhood amenity as far as associations, but also a lot of public spaces. There's a lot of connectivity that exists with trails and sidewalks throughout that neighborhood. And it's something that as we go forward, hopefully, with the proposed development on this property, we like to take some of those guidelines and some of the standards that were developed as far as Spirit of Brandon Farms and implement those with this proposed development. Here's just some pictures. All you guys are familiar with Spirit of Brandon Farms, I'm sure. And Hunters Brook and Victoria, just to share those with you if you're not familiar. It's interesting, this is the first time we've had an opportunity to appear before you. But if we look back, we really began a dialogue with the Leonard's property owners and their family back in 2021 when they reached out to us and inquired regarding our interest in acquiring their property. And that 2021 conversation basically ended up with us purchasing roughly 200 acres that's made up within this development of the 390 acres, basically 200 acres of the property, which we closed back in March of this year. In addition to that, we began a conversation in the beginning of 2025 with staff. And that conversation was with regards to how we would look at this property. At that time, we had the Leonard's property under control, and we're planning on closing on that property, which we did. But how would the city would like us to see us going forward with that from a staff perspective? Our commitment to the staff at that point is that we would look at this very comprehensively, and we would look at not only the 200 acres that make up the Leonard's property, but the surrounding properties. And in fact, this evening, I assume that there's a number of individuals who are property owners in this area, which were part of our joint application. If you look at our applications, a number of those are joint applications, which included property owners that made up basically the 390 total acres, of which 200 was originally the Leonard's property. Additional 10 acres we've acquired since that time, when we originally closed in March. And then of the total, there's a total of 258.67 net residential acres. And why is that important? As we go forward with the comp plan amendment and the Metropolitan Council's review of that plan, as part of their 2050 comp plan requirements, is they'd like to see roughly 3.5 units per acre. So when we look at the development, we look at net residential acres. In the case of net residential acres, that excludes out wetlands and wetland buffers. And so we have roughly 259.67 residential acres, which has to be developed, according to the Metropolitan Council, at 3.5 units per acre net. In addition to that, there is additional school property and commercial acres that make up the 390.36 acres, roughly 57.75 acres. As I mentioned, this is part of a joint application with a number of property owners. There are 12 total property owners, including ourselves, and that makes up 21 separate individual properties. Again, very comprehensive in nature. That was our commitment to staff, back about 6 months ago, that's how we would look at it. And again, Tradition Development Corp. Owns approximately 210 acres of that total amount of property. What you have before you this evening, which was again reviewed by the Planning Commission and subsequently approved, are really two main applications regarding the comp plan. And again, we're looking at the 2040 comp plan, and we're looking at amending the Metropolitan Urban Service Area Staging Plan. In addition to that, amending the land use plan with proposed and concurrent land use designations as illustrated by the attached drawing, which you have in your packet. What's interesting about that is that some of the joint applications that we have currently, their existing land use is correct and is consistent with what we're proposing, but then all of the applications that you have in front of you require us to amend the current Metropolitan Urban Service Area Staging Plan. One item to keep in mind is that the amendments that we're doing are basically two in nature as far as the Metropolitan Urban Service Area is concerned. One is the Expansion Area B. And Expansion Area B basically says that is to have urban services brought to it in the years 2029 to 2038, and the other being the Urban Reserve is not before 2038, and we're looking at amending to those to be current. Presently, with the Expansion Area B, conceivably you could develop the Expansion Area B, which is 134 acres beginning in 2029. So just to keep in mind, there's really two different current staging designations within that area. And again, on the land use side, some of the existing current land uses are consistent with what our concept is, and some are being proposed and need to be changed. As part of that, all cities are required to bring their zoning map to be consistent with their comprehensive plan, land use plan, and that also is part of the application, provided we go forward and receive approval of the comprehensive plan land use changes that we're recommending. This is the overall plan. Again, 390 acres. It would have been very easy for us, again, to maybe just focus on the Leonard's property and bring in an application and changes for 200 acres. Again, our commitment to the city staff was we look at the whole property versus just the Leonard's property. The Leonard's property is roughly the property that would be on the western portion of the site. There's roughly 160 acres, and then sort of the dog leg that goes up to the north, there's another 40 acres that's added to that. As part of this plan, we basically go all the way up to 210th, and then to the south, roughly just a little ways south of 215th, not quite to 225th, but south of that. And then, of course, the easterly boundary being 35. The changes that we're showing, if you look at the map, it'll say current land use. Again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the land use changes that we're requesting it's already guided correctly, so we're not requesting for those that say current land use. Only those where it doesn't say current land use. One of the conversations that occurred at the Planning Commission surrounded wetlands. This drawing shows the wetlands based upon the National Wetland Inventory. And so as we go far forward, we're in the process of doing an actual field wetland delineation. And what we're finding is there's significantly more wetlands that this drawing shows, which I think is important for you to recognize that. And that's one of the things that maybe got missed as part of the last meeting. So if you go out and actually walk on the Leonard's property today, you'll see that there's a number of flags which are delineating where those existing wetlands, which again are outside of what's currently being shown by this plan, and will be needed to be incorporated into our proposed plans. Again, and I'd like to go through the process with you and some of the milestones that we're looking at. Again, the concepts of plan and zoning amendments, which the staff will go through in a little more detail, are two in nature. Again, the Metropolitan Urban Service Area Staging Plan, and then also the land use amendments that we're requesting, as well as then a zoning map amendment. Both of those approvals would be contingent upon completion of an alternative urban area-wide review. And I'll get into that in a few seconds, but because of the scope of the project, the number of acres, and more importantly, the number of homes that would be proposed on this site, we would be required to complete an alternative urban area-wide review or an EIS. But most cities at this point have opted to choose the alternative urban area-wide review as an option to an EIS. And I'll get into that in a few seconds. We would hope, if we receive a positive response this evening, is that the city then would submit those approved 2040 comp plan amendments, again, the two in nature, to the Met Council for approval in accordance with the Met Council's comprehensive plan amendment checklist and guidance. And again, that would be subject to then completion of an AUR. I'll get into that in 1 second. It is expected the total scope of the AUR would include all those that are part of our joint application for the land use changes, but then also the Metropolitan Urban Service Area changes, which is the 390.36 acres. At this point, as we look at that and the proposed guidings that we're asking for, or the land use designations, would be for approximately 1,200 housing units. 1,200 housing units, which would be approximately 600 detached units, single family, and 600 attached, which would be more likely townhomes or apartments. Those would all, that total of those two would exceed the current thresholds that the Environmental Quality Board in Minnesota has established as a mandatory EIS. As an example, for an EIS AUR requirement, 400, anything greater than 400 detached units, or anything greater than 600 attached units, a combination thereof, it requires you to do a mandatory alternative urban area-wide review or an environmental impact statement. In this case, we would choose and recommend to the staff, who I assume would recommend to the council, that we would complete an AUR process. Further discussion would be required in terms of the proposed development scenarios. As part of the AUR is we would look at basically two different scenarios for the property in terms of development. And I'll get into that in just a couple seconds. And the total AUR process, which I think is important to note, is somewhere between 6 to 9 months in length. So even though we're here first time before you, that AUR process actually is going to take 6 to 9 months. And again, the recommendation at this point is that any action you would take on the comp plan amendments, that would be subject to completion of the AUR process and submission of that, as well as the comp plan amendments to the Met Council. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm just going to go as a brief overview of this. We can spend a lot of time on this at some point. As I mentioned, one of the things that's important is the first step is to develop a AUR scoping document, which would include study scenarios. And we talked about study scenarios. We would include one based upon the current 2040 land use guiding, which is roughly 300 units if you look at all the property. In addition to that, there would be a second scenario, and it would be based upon the proposed amendment to the comp plan, land use plan, which is definitely a higher density, which is roughly, again, in that 1,200 unit range. So we would probably, more than likely, working with staff, recommend to the council that they basically develop a scoping document and study scenarios that would be in that 300 to 1,200 unit range. As part of an AUR, what is developed as part of that is basically a mitigation plan. This is for all these things that are environmental things that we're looking at. Here are the things that need to be done to mitigate it, and we look at based upon the current density, which is sort of like we'll call the no-build scenario, which is roughly the 300 units, and then we'll look at the other end, roughly 1,200 units, and again, what needs to be done as part of the development process to mitigate the impacts on the environment, okay? So there's initial approval, again, of the AOR scoping document and the study scenarios. Once that's approved, then it's distributed to interested parties by, again, the Environmental Quality Board. They have a specific distribution list that they would send that to. And once that's approved, then there would be a final order and a record decision after the 30-day public comment period. And then if the preparation of the actual AER study and mitigation plan, again, this is a 6 to 9 month process, which would look at the land uses that are being proposed on the site, both as they currently exist under the current 2040 comp plan and also as proposed as part of the comp plan amendments that we're suggesting this evening. There would be a study with regards to soils and topography, wetlands, which is an important element, water resources, wastewater, obviously it's important, wildlife and transportation. One of the things people usually focus on is the transportation element of this, which is important. If you're saying that you're looking at 300 homes on the site versus 1,200 homes, obviously that impacts traffic differently, okay? And so that's one of the things that's a very important element of this. So basically, once we would complete that AUR study and mitigation plan, and the mitigation plan, for example, in transportation would be is that there needs to be a new interchange built on 210th, for example, and what does that interchange look at, and what would the traffic flows be? What has to, as far as LAGO, and does LAGO need to be extended and developed all the way to the south? Those types of conversations would be happen as part of the transportation study. And then after that basically is completed, the council would review it, and they would have an official submission of the draft AUR for a 30-day public comment period again. And then the city ultimately, hopefully, is in a position where they would issue a notice of adequacy for the final AUR and mitigation plan. So they would say that we find this to be adequate. That's published in, again, the Environmental Quality Board Monitor. And so that basically completes that process. So once that process is completed, then we actually would get into what we'll call more project-specific approvals. One being the extension of the trunk sanitary sewer project, which is, I know, something the staff has been talking about at the beginning of conversations later this fall on. And that basically would extension the trunk sanitary sewer along a 215th Street alignment from just east of 35, under 35 to the proposed development, roughly again along the 215th Street alignment. And then as part of that also, we would start with the PUD process. So the PUD sketch plan, staff review, PUD sketch plan, neighborhood meeting would follow that. I would say that there's a number of opportunities, both as part of the AUR process as well as the PUD process for community and neighborhood engagement. And that's definitely something that we're going to be involved in, and so that people have an understanding of what we're doing and have an opportunity to have input into that process. And then the Planning Commission and City Council, PUD sketch plan review. Keep in mind, roughly we're at 390 acres as part of the AUR. We're not anticipating that everyone that's part of the AUR will want to join in as far as the PUD application. Their timing maybe that they want to develop or sell their property at a later date. And so right now we're looking at 290 sort of being the minimum number of acres, which would include the 200 acres that's represented by the Leonard's property, roughly 40 acres that's owned by Mr. Jay Blanchard on the northern portion of the site, another 10 acres which we've acquired, and then another 40 acres which is, we'll call as the Glessman property, which is out just to the south of 215th along 35. So those would be the three pieces making up what we would say is sort of the minimum that we would submit as far as a PUD. And that definitely will evolve as people make decisions in terms of their desire to continue to live on the property. One thing I will say, the benefit to the property owners that are part of the overall scope for the AUR, and as well as the comp plan amendments that we're requesting, is at some point if they choose to sell to us or to others, that AUR environmental process has been completed for them. So they would be able to come in. Again, we looked at the whole site as a whole, and so they would be able to come in and not complete another environmental review or be required to do such. I will also note that, though, is that the AUR is required to be updated every 5 years. And so there will be some additional updates that will happen along the process. And then obviously then also the PUD development stage, preliminary plat approval for phase 1, PUD final stage approval, and then city council final plat approval of phase 1. We look at this, I'll use Spirit Brandon Farms as an example. We're now completing the last edition at Spirit Brandon Farms, which is the 25th edition. And so that project had a duration of 20 years. So just to keep that in mind, this project is somewhat similar in size. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight. Just some other things that, again, what we've been thinking about and meeting with people on, obviously, is transportation, and transportation is going to be a big component to this. I know that staff has met with Dakota County regarding 210th and how that connection might occur as far as a north-south parkway on 210th, which would be a major access to this property as well as the surrounding properties. Parks and open space and trails, those are two items that are considered as part of your current 2040 comp plan. There is an expectation that there would be a neighborhood park somewhere on the property. In addition to that, there would be a greenway connection that would connect basically a future connection to Ritter Farm down through the property to the Soberg waterfowl production area as far as the greenway is concerned, which in our mind would be a trail connection that would occur. And again, that's part of your comp plan guidance presently. School district, we had an opportunity back on August 4th to meet with the school district to talk about the proposed development and its implications regarding future enrollment. Keeping in mind, again, this is a project that's going to occur over a long period of time. We gave them some ideas in terms of phasing, some ideas in terms of buyer profiles. Again, at one end of the spectrum, you probably have millennials who don't have necessarily a lot of children. And the other end, you probably have empty nesters, retirees, or baby boomers, so again, who don't have a lot of children. And so, depending upon the product type and how things are phased, there could be a very little impact in terms of enrollment, but there will be definitely an impact in terms of the numbers of units that we would be building on the enrollment. And we would continue to hopefully embrace those opportunities to meet with the school district to talk through that so that they have some idea of what the future enrollment that this particular project would generate as far as new enrollment. United Christian Academy is part of our joint application. They are obviously directly to the east of the property that we currently own as far as the Leonard's property. We've had a number of meetings with them in terms of where they're at in their process. We do feel United Christian Academy is definitely a benefit and an amenity to the overall development, and would continue to hopefully have opportunities to work with them to get their program off and going. Okay. Just to give you an idea of process and milestones, and again, that's assuming there's some direction this evening given. Governmental approval is really going to take us through 2026. It's not our expectation that we're going to be starting until the latter part of 2026 with anything on this property. As we mentioned, the AUR process by itself is a 6 to 9 month process. We would complete development of phase 1, and again, this would be a multiple phase project in 2027, not start homes until 2027, and not have any impact in terms of new homes being completed, school kids moving in really until 2028. And we look at this project, if roughly 1,200 units would be from somewhere between 2028 and 2040 and being completed. Again, a point of reference being Spirit Brandon Farms is 20 years. Hopefully this isn't 20 years. Hopefully it's more along the neighborhood of 12 years, but we don't have any idea. I think one thing Spirit Brandon Farms demonstrates is our commitment to what we begin is what we finish, and we adhere to the overall plan that was originally approved. We have engaged with a lot of consultants. A lot of those consultants will be part of the process as far as the AOR concerned. I'm not going to go through these any detail here, but that's just to give you some idea of different people like a traffic engineer, the environmental assessment worksheet, wastewater and water, all which will have input into the AUR process, wetland delineation, all that, which we've actually started a lot of that process. Tree survey would be another one that I'll just throw out there in recognition of the tree ordinance that the staff, Planning Commission, and Council work so hard on, that we obviously recognize that as being an important element of our overall development project as we go forward. Proposed development mission statement. As I mentioned, we look at Spirit of Brandon Farms as being a template. There's a lot of really good ideas, a lot of hard work that went into Spirit of Brandon Farms. We like the end product that we ended up with. It's a great community, great place for people to live. And so there's a lot of things that we will carry forward into this development. One of the things that we are looking at is basically a distinctive neighborhoods of homes of different sizes and types. Really looking at that, we're trying to appeal to a lot of different buyer profiles. But all those homes will have one thing that'll be consistent, and that is specific design quality standards and architectural guidelines. We will provide extensive connect and open space. That's one of the things that sort of makes Spirit of Brandon Farms sort of work and a great place to live. We're going to obviously work around existing wetlands and ponds to the extent that we can. Tree preservation ordinance, I mentioned that. We would expect that we're going to preserve a lot of the existing trees and woodlands on the site, but we would expect, on the other hand, also probably to exceed the 40% removal threshold to some degree. It just will be difficult. This is a heavily treed site, which is good and bad at the same time, but we do feel that, again, we're going to work to the best that we can to sort of balance that, the development of the property and the preservation of existing trees and woodlands. To provide a distinctive homeowner associated amenity area, that's just sort of a foregone conclusion that we would do that. And then, again, to develop the property utilizing a template, the development standards contained within the Spirit of Brandon Farm, a PUD, and that basically is reduced right-of-ways, reduced street widths, boulevards with trees in them, sidewalks, all the things that you see that make Spirit sort of a unique place to live. With that completes my portion of the presentation. Okay.
Council, do you have questions now, or do you want, Tina, do you want to give your, okay, let's do our staff report and then we'll.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. If we could get the other PowerPoint up. Mr. Stutz provided a great comprehensive overview of the request. I'm going to dial in a little bit on the specifics just so you know kind of exactly where all the moving parts are for the different amendments. But as Mr. Stutz mentioned, they have requested both a comprehensive plan amendment that is in two parts, usage staging change as well as a land use amendment, and then the rezoning amendments so that we ensure consistency with the land use plan. And again, as he illustrated, it's a first step in a lengthy planning process. So again, the properties that are part of the amendment are highlighted, are outlined in red. Again, they have purchased 5 properties. There's 16 other surrounding properties that are part of this amendment for the total of 390 gross acres. And again, the intent is to create a master plan developed after this concept plan, and this concept plan served as the basis for those land use amendments. So taking a step back and thinking about why are we doing this, I wanted just to send a reminder to the Planning Commission, a reminder council, and as well as to help the public understand what a comprehensive plan is. Why are we doing this? So a comp plan is just that. It's a long-range planning document, guides our future growth, guides our future development. It's required by state statute, and it's approved by the Metropolitan Council. The land use element includes a sewer staging plan. That sewer staging plan projects the estimated timing for development based on projected extension of sewer. We update this plan every 10 years. So at each 10-year mark, we do our best to project sewer timing, project exactly where we want different types of development to occur. But within that 10-year span, amendments can be requested by property owners to both the land use, the staging, and other elements based on development proposals. And this isn't the first amendment that you've seen. The land use plan itself outlines how land is intended to be developed or redeveloped over time. All of the yellow, orange, and brown illustrate residential land use types. all of those have associated minimum densities. In our 2040 plan, which we're operating under today, we must maintain 3.0 units per acre overall. So all of that residential property we have to do the math of all the acres and all the densities and make sure we're at least 3 units overall. That's moving to 3.5 when we do the 2050 plan. And then with that, once that's adopted, the zoning must be consistent with the land use. So the proposed land use changes a few things. There's a parcel that's going to go from commercial to medium high, rural density to low density, some rural density areas to low medium, and then some rural to medium high. And there's 5 parcels that have no land use change. So I'm just going to quickly highlight the areas. This commercial property is being proposed to mirror, so it's a 40-acre piece that's split. In my opinion, it's never a good idea to split a piece of property into 2 different land use designations. This piece of commercials off the beaten path and direct access to 210th Street, so it is a good candidate for the switch. So the proposed is on the bottom. I should have made that clear. So the existing's on the top, the proposed is on the bottom. So that changes to medium high density. Then we get into the RDR, which is rural density land use. So again, we're talking land use, not zoning yet. And this rural density land use is basically, it's an interim land use. It's also within the urban reserve area on the staging plan. So those two go hand in hand. And as an interim land use, it's there until sewer development occurs. And then that land use has to be re-guided to develop at urban densities because it's being served by sewer. So the intent was always for that rural area in this part of the community to always change along with that urban reserve. So in this case, there's several areas that are under that rural density land use that are changing. So in this area, it's switching to a portion of low and medium density, low density, and again, low medium density. And those corresponding land uses are 0.1 to 3 units an acre for the low density, moving up again to 3.5. The low medium is a change that allows density up to 4 to 5 units an acre, and then the medium to high density allows a density of 5 to 9 units an acre. So again, you can see the switches from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. The majority is all one type of residential development. And again, putting this map up again so you can see how that land use change on those 2 maps. The existing, the proposed correspond with the concept plan. The staging plan is a framework for when land will develop based on estimated expansion of sewer. So the area that's shown in white is what we call current or within the MUSA. Area A and Area B have time frames. Area B is the expansion area B, which is what we're dealing with this evening, has that 29 to 38 time frame. And then urban reserve is a designation that anticipates future development, again, when utilities are available. And again, amendments can be made to this plan. So the area, as Todd mentioned, there's portion that's going from expansion area B to current, and then urban reserve to current. So those are the 2 changes. One of the reasons why this makes sense now is there is improvements that will happen on the east side of 215th Street that will upgrade that entire street up to the interstate. With that will be improvements for water, storm, road improvements, and stormwater, with an extension of the sewer under I-35 to serve this amendment area. These same improvements will serve approximately 270 acres of a new industrial development on the east side of I-35, south of County Road 70. So all of this really goes hand in hand. The zoning map amendments follow suit just like the zoning map amendments. So if you look at the map on the top, you'll be able to see the corresponding land use. So areas that are going from rural residential will be zoned RST2 or RS4. RS4 is a low density designation. RST2 is more of a low medium, as well as a change to the RM3. Again, this corresponds with that land use change. Again, Mr. Stutz outlined in a lot more detail than I am about all the different steps in the process. The next step would be submittal of this amendment to the Met Council, get going on the preparation of the AUAR. That is something the developer prepares, but we're heavily involved in the evaluation and the review. Then comes the master planning, the PUD, the preliminary plating, and all of that. So that is all I have to try and outline what those changes are, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions or comments? Councilmember Lee?
One question on this map in particular is I see one or two parcels that are outlined in black but are not highlighted in the zoning or use changes.
There are a few properties that are not having a land use change. They're staying the way they are.
On the previous slide, in the upper, no,
This one?
nope, the satellite image was what I was looking at. In the upper left, there are two, looks like two.
Up in this location?
Is that part of this?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Just a comment. When we started this conversation, it was important to me that we were looking at this whole area. So I'm glad that that message was translated and was used as part of this planning process and to Tradition and the developer. Thank you for doing that. And then in today's packet, there ultimately an AUAR was going to happen no matter what. But I think putting it in as a stipulation of this change not being effective until that AUAR is successfully completed was an important change, at least for me to kind of wrap my head around, ensuring that process played out in the way that we still had checkpoints in place to make changes or shifts if there were concerns that came out of that AUAR. So I know it doesn't sound like a big change, but I think that was important to me so that I would be comfortable going forward with that plan. And I think the outlining of all of these steps is important. I mean, we saw how lengthy just the presentation was. So to know how long that process is going to be and how many checkpoints are in that process is an important thing. So appreciate both of those things.
So this is not a public hearing, but it's custom the council will allow the public to talk for up to 3 minutes. It's a little bit different setup from the Planning Commission, but if you have questions or comments, we'd have you raise your hand, come on up, state your name and your address for the record, and I will gently remind you when you have a little bit of time left. Come on up.
Good evening, Beth Loudon. I own two of the properties that are in the corner that you just talked about, that are not included, although there is still a road that's showing on the first plan. It's not on the second to the far top left. So I have 12330 210th Street and 200 and 210th. The situation, a couple things. I was glad to hear that the developer is actually realizing there's a lot more wetlands than he first thought. So I appreciate the fact that the AUR is going to be done first. I would recommend it be done first before you do anything more, because I think you're going to find a lot of wetland impact. In addition, I'm concerned about how you've got the box from Leonard's. It's actually the opposite. You are increasing the zoning where the most trees and water are versus up front, where if you're going to increase zoning, it should be towards the front where you have less water and less trees. That whole property of all of our neighbors along the north side of Leonard's is where all the animals are, where all the trees and water. And so after you put in the development over by Walmart there and took down 900 trees or whatever it was, all of those animals have come across and are in that environment in that area. Also, I didn't notice that one of your areas of expertise of your consultants did not include the federal government, because that land is a federal hunting land at Solberg. My kids have hunted there for years. I don't know how we can impact and think about 1,200 homes next to a hunting zone. Obviously, that would be very disappointing for Lakeville to lose that opportunity to provide that for our kids and our adults. So again, I think that they talk about 300, 400 acres. The area there, we received 2 letters because we own 2 of the properties of the 21 they talk about. And I know several of my neighbors are not interested, in selling and neither are we. So I'm concerned about their math and how many actual they can do. First time we heard tonight, there might be only 300 homes. That seems a lot more reasonable than 1,200. Again, the environmental study is the key. We've already had a negative impact when Dakota County put in the 210th Street Road, County Road 70, 4 lanes, and they stopped short of right where you want to put that first right, top right road in, and it went back to 2 lanes. The reason it went back to 2 lanes is that whole area is all water up in that area. They would have had a hard time with all the wetlands to take it that last 0.5 of a mile. So again, we don't have the road capacity. Background with the school district, I'm glad you've met with them. You've heard the superintendent speak at the planning committee that they weren't prepared for this. Just want to remind you, yes, they'll have time to prepare, whether it's new kids or baby boomers, whatever, without kids. It's still an impact on the school district, and it's going to take time and a bond referendum to get through all of that. So I'd ask you to honor your 2040 plan. You put, as Tina indicated, you've put a lot of time and effort into that. You change it every 10 years. I ask that you consider keeping that until it's time to change it for 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Mayor, City Council members, City Administrator, good evening. I'm Bob Erickson, 19081 Indale Drive. What caught my attention to bring me to this meeting and previously to the Planning Commission was the fact that public hearing notice in the Lakeville Sun Current indicated that there would be a MUSA expansion, and I know that was out of sequence with the current comprehensive plan. I was primarily concerned about the impact on the school district as a former school board member, which I had followed very closely in recent months. Very quickly, and as you know, I won't read it in detail, but the Lakeville schools, in their written statements, said they could not support the change at this time. And the reason for that was the lack of details. And the comprehensive plan is very clear on any MUSA expansion and on any comprehensive plan amendment. In this case, slightly out of sequence, was not being done in a consistent manner. This evening, you're considering a comprehensive plan amendment that is a departure from the longstanding practice of the city of Lakeville, whereby they would do the AUAR first, followed by the subsequent comprehensive plan amendment and MUSA expansion. So this is a departure. Also, I think there's been some outreach by the community development director, to her credit, regarding local agency reactions and responses. What's lacking, however, is any response from any watershed or watersheds, the Environmental Quality Board, or the Met Council, which is required in the case of the Met Council for any MUSA expansion, in this case out of sequence from the current comprehensive plan. Finally, I didn't notice any response from the Federal Department of Interior regarding the Sobel site, the Sobel 114-acre waterfowl production area, which also allows for single projectile and hunting with archery for deer, waterfowl, and other eligible hunting license products. Very quickly, an AUR is a planning tool for local governments to assess the cumulative impacts of anticipated development scenarios within a given geographic area. Nothing could be more accurately stated than that regarding the purpose and the benefits of an AUR. I'm concerned with regard to the findings of fact for the Tradition Development Corporation 24 Comprehensive Plan Amendment findings of fact. Primarily, there's no reference to the AUAR. And I would think at a minimum, since this findings of fact is dependent on the approval of the Met Council, that at a minimum, if we're going to deviate from their past practice and do the rezoning before you have the details of development, which would be driven by an AUAR, would occur. So at a minimum, I think if the City Council on a 4/5 vote or greater would want to approve the comprehensive plan amendment via the findings of fact, at a minimum, the findings of fact should reference the need or the requirement or the responsibility of doing an AUR. Again, the response from other agencies excluded Watershed, EQB, Met Council, and the Federal Department of Interior. I appreciate this opportunity. This is not a scheduled public hearing, so Mayor, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Any other comments?
Good evening, council members. My name is Larry Jones, 12450 210th Street West. I have the very farthest 10 acres on 210th Street on the south side in Lakeville and Dakota County. One of my biggest concerns is the way this map is laid out for the transportation road going up there. If you would look at a farther picture of it, you'll see Laredo Path on the north side already intersects at 210th Street. This road would come in farther east, that's in this planning drawing here, that once again creates another intersection for traffic issues, and it would be, and somehow I think in the Planning Commission's venue to somehow align up that intersection for better traffic control. I know that County Road 70 has become very, very heavy in traffic, construction, equipment stuff going to and from due to more development to the west out there, past territory and areas and stuff like that. So just a heads up in reference to that. One more note as far as wildlife, the development to the west of my property and to the south there in township there, we used to have coyotes, deers, fox, turkeys wandering through our property all the time. That's almost all disappeared now. We don't see any turkeys. Deer are very, very random. Coyotes, fox, nothing. All that due to that development. That will only continue to happen to a complete disappearance of any wildlife with this development behind us. I don't see anything as far as maintaining that kind of atmosphere out there. I lived in this community going almost on 49 years. I've seen development come in to the west of us, wagon wheel territory, all this development. I've seen now north of Walmart there, that development in the old gravel pit and stuff. We'll continue to see development. I know that's part of a city growing and stuff like that, but at some point, you know, in reference to schools and stuff like that, I think there's got a lot to be considered with regard to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Other comments?
Hi, Peter Thielen, 12119 Lucerne Trail. Very well spoken, people that were up in front of me about the Sober Wildlife Refuge, the concern on the traffic. I come up, I try to use Laredo Path quite often. Sometimes you sit there for a few minutes before you can get out into the traffic already. You add another 500,000 cars on there per day, per morning shift, per evening shift. I guess I'm just concerned about the traffic and the wildlife refuge. And I like what everybody else has said in front of me and agree with what was said. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, Council. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak. My name is Kerry Cole. I live at 12330 210th Street, and like my wife, we own 2 properties there. I guess my biggest concerns was with the road and the water. With all that water, Lakeville is highs and lows. You have water on top of the hill, you have water on the bottom of the hill. You start moving all those ponds around. When they redeveloped 70 there and narrowed it back down coming in front of our property, they also changed the water table. And unfortunately, there's no predetermined what the water table was before, because we've been through this process with Jacobson and the city, the county, the state, the DNR, and they didn't have a predetermined level before. But since they've done the road, we've had more issues with water in my son's basement. And I'm concerned that with moving the amount of water that is up on the top of Leonard's property, that's going to change where water shows up. I mean, there's more water on that property than there was on the original plan. The one road, if they continue with the road that they've removed off of the current maps, that would cross over wetland to get out to County Road 70. The other thing is, if they wanted to do that road, the wagon or the new development to the west there has a T coming in down there at on the corner of the property. And I would look at that as a means of getting it at least further away, and that you're going to have to deal with County Road 70 no matter how you cut and dry it. I mean, if you're going to put that much traffic onto the 70, it's going to have to be widened with turn lanes and everything else. So anyway, that was my concern about the water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, questions?
Hello, Council. My name is Steve Helvick. I live at 12430 next to Larry Jones. One of the concerns I have is that when Minnesota Energy or the gas company put the high-pressure gas main in and the road has to be changed, then whether it's eminent domain or easement to our side of the road, Kerry brought up the point that there's water up by his property, so that road is going to be not a straight shot unless somebody gives state permission to fill that pond in to the south side of 210th Street. So in that being said, our 10 acres get dropped down, and there has to be, at some point, the traffic now is a freeway. It's 35W. Between 3 and 5, 6 o'clock. We've almost been rear-ended at 60 miles an hour. It's not policed. It's not countied very well during the winter. Scott County goes down to Lucerne, turns around, comes back. We don't ever get plowed out by Dakota. So I guess my concern with that is that, you come to a road project has to be overlooked to fend a development that size. Granted, there's a roundabout road that goes in. Whether we decide to sell, whoever decides to sell, but there still has to be something considered in the road project itself with all that traffic, and the gas mains are not moving. So that's my concern. There would have to be some road study done to make this go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, well.
I don't blame you. Thank you. My name is David Barnes. I live at 12400 210th Street, right next to Steve. I guess you've heard a lot of the concerns. I agree with them. Transportation is a big one, and I'm going to echo Mr. Lee's comment. I think it's good that you're asking that question, because this is a unique piece of land. Mm-hmm. It's not like, and I can't pronounce it, I apologize, the Branton Farms, where you have a lot of access, right? It's a much more open than what this is. And my concern is that we try to stuff too many doors into something that this whole area isn't made for. It's just not set up this way, the way it's boxed in with 35 and 70. So when I look at this, yep, you've got some color-coded places, parcels in there, but you really have to think about the impact past that.
And so I really do agree with you in let's look at this, but let's make sure that we understand the impact across the board and not just what the developers want to do, because I do think it's going to hit a lot of other things that we need to think about. Transportation's a huge one. So thank you.
Very good. I'll take it as that there were no other comments. Okay. Well, first I appreciate everybody kind of sharing. I mean, my hope is that this environmental kind of review process is going to answer a lot of those. I think some of the questions that have come up tonight are really important to make sure that for our staff that we kind of flag to make sure that, especially when we're talking about water and trees and all those type of things and transportation, because it sounds like that's what's out there. So I think from our perspective, those are all things that as we move through this process, we want to make sure we get right so that we're not making a mistake. Because again, as they mentioned, this is a 20-year project. And so it's a long-term solution for this area. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. Council, any other comments or questions or anything else from staff? Councilmember Bermel?
I just want to echo, thank you for your comments. I also watched the Planning Commission meeting and heard the comments there. And they're spot on when we start talking about the transportation, the impact on schools, the wildlife, the trees, all of those things are factors. And that's, my understanding is that's what the AUAR is designed to address. And this is, what we do tonight doesn't mean shovels in the ground next week. This is something that will, the AUAR will follow this, and none of this becomes official until the Met Council says that it is. And so I see this as one part, what we're looking at tonight is one part of a longer process that's probably a 12 to 15 year project, maybe even a 20-year project. But I do appreciate the comments. I agree. Nobody wants a bad traffic situation. Nobody wants water flowing where it hadn't been flowing. And my hope is that's the process of what the AUAR is to take a look at those and to get people's input. This is something that's not like, well, we're done after tonight. There will be plenty of opportunities for input as this project continues.
Okay. Councilmember Lee?
I mean, as we go through this process, I'll certainly be looking at the concerns that have been brought up today and make sure that that continues to be on the forefront. I think there is a benefit to having a developer come in and propose something, because really now this helps our AUAR process talk about something that's realistic as opposed to hypothetical. I think if we were talking hypothetical, some of those estimates would be lower than, potentially what would actually come in. And I want us to be honest about what new development is coming in here, and is this area, does it have the capacity for what we're proposing here? So I'm not worried that we will not look at this thoroughly, but I do encourage your continued input and attendance at meetings like this, because it does matter and it does make a difference. So again, just putting all the cards out there to tradition. Appreciate your ability to put the input into action. So I've seen that already, and I think that's going to be true as we continue too. So so that's why I think I'm even more comfortable with this, because again, we've got something that's being proposed that's going to be realistic, and we're going to be looking at two scenarios through that AUAR process: what it's zoned now and what the impact would be if it was fully built out versus the future zoning proposed here, and what that difference really is between the two. So there's a lot to look at here, but it'll be a good thing to be going throughout the whole thing.
Any other comments from staff? Otherwise, is there a motion? Councilmember Walter?
I don't want to repeat what's been said by the other council members, but just want to underscore some of what's already been said. This is the beginning of a long process, and like Councilmember Lee and Bermel said, and the mayor, I'll be watching as well for many of the issues that have been raised. I think that's important as due diligence for us as a project moves through. But I take I'm proud of the fact that, of the developer that we've got looking at this, somebody that's very community-minded for Lakeville. So I'm confident that those are solutions that can be worked out, so, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion? Councilmember Bermal?
I move to approve, one, a resolution amending a 2040 comprehensive land use map and staging map and adoption of findings of fact, and two, an ordinance amending the zoning map and adoption of findings of fact.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Bermal,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier.
Aye. Okay. I expect to see everybody here for all the other meetings when we're talking about this project, so thank you for being here tonight. Moving on to items 8 and 9, any unfinished or new business? Okay, our next city council meeting is Monday, September 15th here at City Hall. Our next work session is Monday, September 22nd here in the Marion Conference Room. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All's in favor? Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Roll call, please.
Hellier,
Aye.
Bermal,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Volk.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.